Our scripture reading this morning comes from Genesis chapter 4, verses 8 through 16. Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let us go out into the field." And when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" And he said, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" And the Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, to your brother's blood is crying out from the ground to me. And now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened up its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you till the ground, it'll no longer yield to you its strength. You'll be a fugitive and a wanderer on earth." Cain said to the Lord, "Today you have driven me away from the soil, and I shall be hidden from your face. I shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth, and anyone who meets me may kill me." Then the Lord said to him, "Not so. Whoever kills Cain will suffer a sevenfold vengeance." And the Lord put a mark on Cain, so that no one who came to him would kill him. And then Cain went away from the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. This is the word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Timshel. Timshel. The last words on the lips of Steinbeck's protagonist in his masterpiece, East of Eden. Timshel. So, spoiler alert on the novel that was written in 1952, Timshel. It's the entire novel of 600 plus pages summarized in one word, and it leaves the characters and the readers in a precarious place. It leaves us with a decision to choose. As you probably know, East of Eden was Steinbeck's modern retelling of the Cain and Abel story in Genesis chapter 4, verses 1 through 16. So imagine my surprise when Kelly told me that this is the passage that you're going to have to preach from, because that's how it goes, right? It was surprising to me because this fall I started the journey through East of Eden, just a sloth too much journey reading through this tome that starts right here in Connecticut, actually, and ends on the other side of the country in California. And right in the middle of that novel, two of the most important characters, they begin discussing this passage, Genesis chapter 4, verses 1 through 16. And you get a glimpse of where Steinbeck is going for the rest of the novel. And here, this one interlocutor, he calls Timshel the most important word in the world. So what does it mean, and why is it so important? Timshel is a Hebrew verb that happens in verse 7, just before where we started reading today. And God is telling Cain that sin and evil is at his door. It is chasing him. Sin and evil is chasing him. And the King James translates Timshel as, "Thou shalt rule over sin or evil." Thou shalt, Timshel. This translation turns the verb into a divine promise. You certainly will rule over evil. You certainly will. You will. Now, the American Standard Translation says, "do thou." Very Presbyterian, by the way. It's a divine command. It's not a promise. And it reduces the whole thing to just pure obedience. Just do what God says. Do what you're told. So these two translations make Timshel either you will, you got this, it's a done deal, or do it. You better do it. I'm telling you to do this. Steinbeck, through his characters, he argues for a different translation that's neither a promise nor a command. And for all you grammar nerds, I should make you try to raise your hand, but you're probably too introverted to do it. For all you grammar nerds out there, this verb is in a subjunctive mood. It indicates possibility or probability. It's not definitive. So in this case, the best translation is, you can. You may. Or in Steinbeck's mid-century English, thou mayest. This inflection point means that Cain is told by God, not just that he'll be fine, or it's a promise, or he better do it, a command. God tells Cain he has a choice. It's Cain's responsibility to choose between good and evil. It's obvious that he should choose the good, but like all humans, it's just as likely that we have the capacity to choose evil. Cain and all of humanity has the responsibility of choice. It's not simple obedience or providence. It's not hereditary or inevitable what Cain will do. It's not because Cain's mama and daddy, Adam and Eve, right? They messed up, so of course Cain's going to mess up. Cain has a choice. Will he do evil or good? What choice will he make? It's up to him. And this is why the ending of the novel is so profound. Caleb, the Cain character in the novel, after he's murdered, he ends up asking his father on his father's deathbed for forgiveness and redemption after this sin. And his father's last word, again, spoiler alert, his father's last word as he's dying on his deathbed is Timshel. You may. In other words, if you want redemption, if you want forgiveness, if you want to be different, if you want to turn around, if you want to make the decision to do so, it is your choice. You have volition. You have agency. So what makes East of Eden one of the best novels of the 20th century is that it leaves us with this truth. We have a choice. We have free will. And kids, I used to work here a long time ago. Worked in Wilton for a long time. I've been around Fairfield County for 25 plus years. There's a lot of pressures and constraints in this world, in this space. There's a lot of pressures and constraints in our lives. And I was the pastor to a lot of people just like you who feel the pressure of work and the grind and the pressure of a society to be a certain way. With all the pressures and constraints that the world in our lives may force on us, we still, in every circumstance and situation, have the deep human responsibility to choose. How are we going to be in this world? Viktor Frankl, having survived the Holocaust, he wrote in Man's Search for Meaning that all the vestiges of life can be stripped away. Food, water, clothing, shelter, even life itself can be stripped away. But what can never be taken away from us is our capacity to choose our own way. Cain made a choice. And we've been talking about his choice ever since then. So can Cain be redeemed? That's still his choice. Because we have a choice, we can always be redeemed, all of us. Even when we've done our worst, even at our worst, we can always, in that space, choose good. Choose the right thing. Choose what's best. We don't have to succumb to the worst parts of who we are because we still have choice. And Cain represents humanity's capacity to choose. Am I my brother's keeper? Timshel, if you choose to be. Will I let jealousy and envy and the worst parts of my humanity move me towards evil? Timshel, if you choose to let it. Now look, I moved to Connecticut from Mississippi in the last millennia, in 1998. I had a 2-year plan in 1998, get my master's degree in religion, and then return back to the South and pursue a PhD. Then I could be a Bible translator and go to some far-off jungle somewhere and translate the Bible. I got into Greek in undergrad, and I just loved Greek, and I was like, I want to translate the Bible in some language, right? And so I went to my advisor. I said, where's the best place to study Greek? And for me, at that point in South Mississippi, it was either New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary or Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary in Fort Worth, Texas. And so I asked the professor, like, hey, where's the best place to study biblical languages? And he thought about it, and he goes, probably Yale Divinity School. I did not know where that was. I thought it was up with the small states up there. So the next year in 1999, I became a youth group, a YG advisor. I was E-team and A-team on my 2 stints here. I'll never forget using my paper map of Connecticut to find this place. Turning off the Merritt Parkway, steering wheel in one hand, map in the other. And I think it was Route 124, not 123. I turned off 124. Now, up until then, I'd been working in Naugatuck, Connecticut. Raise your hand if you know where Naugatuck is. Okay. And I had no idea if, New Canaan would be any different than Naugatuck or New Haven. All started with N, probably the same place. Never in my life had I been to a town like New Canaan, Connecticut. Even when driving through, I couldn't believe it was real. The houses, the cars, the stores, the roads, the fences. It looked like a movie. It looked like a movie that I probably didn't have a part in. And I wondered, just like the first time I walked onto the Divinity School quadrangle, whether everyone would know just by looking at me or maybe just by hearing me that I was just some Mississippi white trash. And that I didn't belong here. After, driving around New Canaan for a little while, I finally found the church. Finally parked my car. I got into the church and then was walking around the church trying to figure out where I was. And then I heard across the fellowship hall, you probably call it something else, Pilgrim Hall, Smith Hall, there we go. Jason! Big Skip Masbeck over there. Wrapped me up in those big bear paws, gave me a big hug. And even just last night, I got into town and I'm meeting folks for dinner, and there's Chapin and Kelly. Jason, still hugging, still including this church practiced radical inclusion with me. You did. And that was a choice. And I hope this church functions that way in your life. The collective choice of the Congregational Church of New Canaan says, you belong here. We choose you. We choose to be a place of belonging. We choose to care for the youth in our town. We choose to give them a place to belong, no matter who they are, no matter where they're from. We choose to spend our winter break. Y'all could, no, I know where you could be. I mean, you could be anywhere in the world. But you choose to spend your winter break repairing the decay of our society in places that have been utterly abandoned and neglected and left behind. What a choice. Because you chose me, when I started working here, I said, hey, I had some friends from where I'm from. We could do a mission trip there. So we went to Indianola, Mississippi in 2000. 2017, Kelly gives me a call. Hey, we're looking for a mission trip. You came to my hometown. I trust it because I knew how you treated me. I said, come to my hometown in Shaw, Mississippi. You did a bang-up job in Shaw, Mississippi. Inflection point for the town, right? Because the way you treated me when my intern got into Yale Divinity School, I told him, I said, hey, listen, try to get a job at New Canaan Congregational Church. They have this thing called YG. It's great. You would be great there. And Timothy Peoples said, oh, okay. Because of all that, I was in this place, and I found that I may just exist to be a bridge between the North and the South, to be a bridge between the poor and the rich, to be a bridge between the down and out and the up and in. Your voice, your choice as a church to include me affected all the choices that I made moving forward. And I ended up becoming a pastor in Wilton next door for a long time, and that 2-year plan turned into 18. And just 10 years ago, I made another choice to go back home to fight persistent rural poverty in the United States. Now, this summer, I have a kid in high school. I have a 14-year-old daughter that's in 9th grade, 17-year-old senior, and a 19-year-old sophomore in college. This summer, I brought my rising senior here to Connecticut so he could go to a soccer ID camp at Yale. Any soccer players? Oh, sorry. Well, he loved the campus. He loved New Haven. And so I brought him back to Wilton, where he was born and raised for a little while. But it was the first time he's been back as a teenager. And then I drove him over here to New Canaan, and I pointed up to God's Acre. I said, that's the church where I worked. And his eyes were as big as saucers driving around here. It reminded me of me seeing this place for the first time. And he looked at me, and he goes, do you ever regret moving us back to Mississippi? Really, I think he was saying, why did you make that choice? Why did you choose to move me from Connecticut to Mississippi? Well, it's a choice. It's the work. So much of my work at Together for Hope lands kind of this terrible intersection of religion, economics, and politics. It's a really fun place. I mean, certainly complicated, but we hold some strong convictions from our religion regarding the answers to the question, am I my sister or brother's keeper? We make a decision and choose emphatically, yes, we are. And more. Our religious faith beckons us to move beyond just the familial language of brother and sister, not just brothers and sisters, not just our siblings' keeper, But we also make the decision to love our neighbor. But wait, there's more. We actually choose to accept Jesus' call to love your enemies. It's a tough time to do that. But we follow Dr. King's notion that all humanity is interconnected. And since I can't say it better than Dr. King, I'm just going to quote Dr. King here. All people are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I become what I ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality. End quote. Because we have a theological conviction that all men and women are created equal, and every human being has infinite value, and every human being has infinite worth, then we make the choice to work towards state and federal policy that can build this kind of equity within our society. We choose to take care of the least of these. We choose to feed the hungry. We choose to care for the sick. We choose to set the incarcerated free while also working to build a society where no one goes hungry, where the sick receive the care they need, and where there would be no need for prisons. See what you started, New Canaan? See what you did in me? See what you're doing in the world? Can we make the world a better place? What a platitude. Can we make the world a better place? Can we end persistent rural poverty? Can we restructure society so that it benefits everyone with more equity and justice? Can we make a difference? Can we make a difference in Helena, West Helena, Arkansas in 1 week in February? Can we? Can we practice radical inclusion right here in New Canaan? Thou mayest. You may. You can. You just have to choose to. Timshel. Timshel.